To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.
So, my dear children, in the earlier chapters, we discussed the movements and the locomotive structures related to animals. Animals, in the sense over there we discussed about the microorganisms and about the human beings, especially, right? And also we discussed several appendages used by different kinds of animals as well, right? So within this chapter, we'll be mainly focusing about the movements related to a plant. What are the special kinds of movements that we can observe within a plant? So you are given with a topic here. Mainly we are going to discuss within this chapter about the support and movements of plants, my dear children. Support and the movements of plants. Okay. Right. So you are given with a point first. Just like in animals, tissues are present within plants for the purpose of mechanical support. So there are several tissues located in a plant, in same as the animals. You know that when you take several cells, collection of several cells is called as a tissue. It is a special structure. Now when you take muscles, muscle cells are arranged as several units or arranged as several cells. So this collection of several cells is called as a tissue. This is called as a tissue. So my dear children, muscle cells are available as, right, muscle tissues. Muscle tissues are the ones who are creating muscles. Bone tissues are the ones who are creating bones. So in a tissue we can observe different kinds of cells sometimes, and also several collections of cells. Okay, especially several collections of cells. So in the same way, my dear children, to keep the plant rigid and for the motion of and for the movements of plants, right? Actually, here a part of a plant is going to move, or a part of a plant is going to show motions. So part of a plant, right, a part of a plant is going to move during the movements of plants. Okay, so for these movements, my dear children, special tissues are going to help. Okay, right? There are special types of tissues, right, which are made by the collection of cells. So these tissues are the ones which are helpful for the motions. So, and not for the motions, but here it is given for the mechanical support also, tissues present within the plant are helpful. So what do you mean by the mechanical support? Mechanical support means, my dear children, it's the support given out by a plant, right? It's the support given out by, not a plant, actually it should be a special structure, right? It is the support given out by a special structure in order to keep the plant rigid and erect. This is referred as the mechanical support, right? To keep a certain plant rigid and erect, the support given out by the units contained within the plant. Okay, that's what do you mean by the mechanical support. So in order to provide the mechanical support, tissues are very helpful. So my dear children, you may have noticed on sunny days, some plants like balsam get withered and the stem is bent down. This is due to lack of water supply to the plant. So balsam plants, if you have observed balsam plants, these plants are non-woody plants, my dear children. Non-woody in the sense, they do not have a strong stem. Stem is very weak. Bryophyllum is also another type of a plant that has a weak stem or else a non-woody stem. Bryophyllum and balsam. When you take a balsam plant, my dear children, balsam plant keep the rigidity by filling water into the cells, right? So, by filling water inside the cells of the stem, a balsam plant is going to maintain the rigidity. The stem is kept erect by using that particular strength given out by the stem upon filling water. So for a simple example, let us imagine that there is a bag, a polythene bag. Now you know that this polythene bag is going to, like when a small wind is going to come, this polythene bag is going to go here and there because there is no enough strength to keep the polythene bag erect, as it is very weak. But however, what will happen if you fill water into this polythene bag? You're going to fill water and you're going to tie the opening of the polythene bag very well. Now the water is not getting removed. Now at this time, right, definitely the polythene bag will not move here and there upon a small wind. It's because that now it is going to stay in a stationary position, stay in an erect position, because it has a strong rigidity. So when water is going to fill on cavities or in some containers, water can provide some kind of a strength, some kind of a rigidity to that particular area or to that particular unit. Simple example is polythene bag. When you fill water into a polythene bag, you can keep the polythene bag rigid without falling or without moving here and there. You can keep it very rigid. Okay. So this happens because of the water, filling of water. So if you take non-woody plant stems like balsam, bryophyllum, there is a special mechanism in which the water can be filled to these stems. So when water is going to fill to these stems can be kept in a vertical position without waving here and there. Okay. So here it is given. You may have noticed on sunny days some plants like balsam get withered and the stem is bent down. Now, during sunny days, my dear children, these balsam plants, especially non-woody plants, will not be able to keep the stem erect like this. What is the reason for it? What would be the reason? The main reason is, if you take a balsam plant or else a non-woody plant, I told you that non-woody plant keep the stem erect by filling water into the cells which contain within the stem. In a sunny day, the rate of transpiration is going to be high. It means that large amount of water vapor is going to release from the leaves from a plant. So during a sunny day, the vaporization of water will get increased. So less amount of water will retain within the stem. Less amount of water will retain within the stem. Now if there is less amount of water, what will happen? The plant will not be able to keep the stem rigid, my dear children, because of less amount of water. Right? Because of less amount of water, plant will not be able to keep the stem rigid. So therefore, definitely the stem will bend down. So this bending occurs due to lack of rigidity. The lack of rigidity occurs mainly due to evaporation of water. So when more water is going to be evaporated from the plant, more and more it will bend. Okay. So therefore, to keep the plant rigid, especially for non-woody plants, water is essential. Water is essential. So here the definition is given. This is due to lack of water supply to the plant. So non-woody plants like balsam bryophyllum keep the plant rigid by filling water into the cells which contain within the stem. Okay. Then the next one given. To keep non-woody plants erect and alive, it is vital to have water inside the plant. So the next point is very important, my dear children. Okay. To keep non-woody plants erect and alive. So it's very important to keep plant erect, and also it helps to keep the plant alive as well. So to keep a plant, especially a non-woody plant, erect and alive, this thing is very important. What? Water, right? Water. So water is very important to keep non-woody plants erect and alive. Okay. So there should be enough water inside the cells or inside the stem cells within a plant to keep the plant erect and alive. Here especially we are discussing about non-woody plants, my dear children. Non-woody plants. Non-woody plants. Okay. Then woody plants can be kept erect in low water percentages. So you know that when you take a woody plant, we'll take a stem of a mango, stem of a jack plant, okay, stem of a jack plant, stem of a coconut plant, okay. Actually, those things are not plants, those things are trees. Giving word plant is not suitable for those kind of trees, right? Those things are trees. Mango is a large tree. Same as the coconut, okay, same as the jack. So when you take these plants, my dear children, now I think you have cut down a coconut tree. If you are not, then at least your parents or some other elderly person, all right? I think you guys have seen that a cut down tree of a tree that has been cut down, okay. Let's imagine that a coconut tree has been cut down. Most probably now those elders, okay, not you but elders are going to do this thing for their needs. They're going to cut down trees. So if you have seen a coconut tree, then you could see that water is not going to be a compulsory component that contained within the stem of these plants, and it's applicable for the other trees as well, like mango, right, jack, and so on. So when you take these types of woody plants, my dear children, water is not a constituent agent that keep the plant rigid in here, okay. So due to less amount, it is okay to have very less amount of water within the stems of those plants, okay, because those stems are not going to keep rigid because of the water. Then woody plants can be kept erect in low water percentages due to presence of various chemical substances. Now in here, woody plants can be kept erect, right? Woody plants can be kept erect. So here non-woody plants erect, water. Here woody plants can be kept erect in low water percentages due to presence of various chemical substances. So within woody plants, my dear children, there are different chemical substances. There are different chemical substances present within the woody plants. Okay. So these chemical substances like cellulose. So cellulose is a special kind of a chemical substance that contained within the cell walls of cells. Especially in plant cells, the cell wall is made up with cellulose. Right? So when you take the plant stem is made up with cellulose fibers. Cellulose fibers. So that is why it is that much rigid. Okay? That is why it is that much rigid. Okay? When you take the plant stem, most of the times they contain several different kinds of plants, they contain these cellulose fibers. Okay? So that helps to keep the plant rigid and strong as well. So the other component is the lignin. Lignin is type of a glue, or it's like type of a bonding material that helps to keep two layers of cells or tissues together. Okay, it helps to keep two layers or two layers of cells together. Okay, it's like a bonding material, lignin. So when several layers are fixed together or bonded together with the deposition of lignin, what will happen? The strength of the plant stem will get increased, and it will allow to keep the plant, to hold the plant rigid in the soil. Okay, so lignin and cellulose deposited in the walls in heartwood of the plant helps to keep the plant rigid in woody plants, my dear children. Woody plants. So they give a rigidity to the plant. So these substances, these chemicals give rigidity to the woody plants. Right? So this is how the rigidity of the plant is being protected. So normally when you take non-woody plants like balsam and bryophyllum, these non-woody plants, okay, these non-woody plants are maintained, or the rigidity of these non-woody plants are maintained by water. So water helps to keep the plant rigid, non-woody plant rigid. If you take a woody plant, in a woody plant, the stem is kept rigid by the use of chemicals like lignin and cellulose. Okay, right then. So let's head on to see the other contents. So this is a balsam plant, my dear children. Right, as you can see here, the balsam plant is now bent to a side, bent to a certain direction. Same as in here, within this figure also you can observe that it is being bent. So this occurs mainly because of lack of water. Okay, this occurs mainly because of lack of water. So within the other figure at your right hand side, you can observe a woody plant. So when you take the structure of a woody plant, it is like this. Then if you check the structure of inner cells and tissues, it is like this. So these depositions are referred as lignin depositions. So this is how lignin is deposited within the each, right? This is how lignin has deposited within the each layers of cells. So this chemical, as you can see here, this is the chemical called lignin. So lignin is deposited. So in here, within this red color, you can observe the lignin particles. It's like a type of bonding material, right? Which helps to keep two layers rigid like this. Like our rib cage, my dear children. Within our rib cage, there are special kinds of muscles which are referred as intercostal muscles within our rib cage. Okay, so within the rib cage, in the same way like this, there are intercostal muscles. So these lignin, right, this lignin keeps two layers of cells together and it helps to keep the plant rigid like this, to have a strong stem like this. Okay. So special lignin and cellulose fibers helps to keep a woody plant erect and strong. Okay. Right. So this is about the rigidity of woody plants and the non-woody plants, my dear children. Right. Then regarding the movements of plants, my dear children, so here the definition of a plant movement is given. Growth of a part in a plant as a response to a stimulus or change of the location due to a turgor change is known as a movement of a plant. So, growth of a part in a plant as a response to a stimulus. So, you know that the apex of the plant is going to grow always towards the light. Apex of the plant is going to grow always towards the light, my dear children. It's mainly because of the auxins or the growth substances which is getting generated within the plant, right? We discussed in the earlier lesson, within the seventh lesson, the plant growth substances, we discussed that. Auxins are the ones which are helpful to bend a plant towards the light. So apex is bent towards the light mainly because of the action of auxins. Mainly because the actions of auxins. The plant apex is bent towards the direction of light. Okay. So observation, light, or else light is the particular stimulus captured by the plant. Light, presence of light, observation of light. For that observation or for that particular stimulus, plant is going to provide a certain response, production of auxins, away or towards. It can be any way, okay, according to the direction of the light. So production of auxins are going to increase or decrease. During that production of auxins process, one area of the plant will grow towards the light, or it will bend down towards the light due to having large number of auxins molecules. Okay. Actually, the darker area get more concentration of auxins, so the growth will be accelerated in that part and the plant will bend down towards the light source or towards the light. So my dear children, here the growth movement or the growth of the apex mainly triggered or mainly happened because of the growth substances. Because of the growth substances. So here it is given, growth of a part in a plant, growth of a part. So it can be apex, stem, fruits, flowers, anything. So growth of a part in a plant as a response to a stimulus. So it should give out a certain stimulus. Due to having a stimulus or due to having a certain change in the environment, the plant is going to respond according to it. The response given is the growth. Right? The response which is given is the growth. For an example, light is coming from a certain side. Then, my dear children, auxins are getting produced. Due to auxins, the concentration of number of auxin particles are getting increased. So when increase in the oxygen particles, the darker area will grow very fast. So therefore, the bending process can be observed. Bending process can be observed. Okay. So the stimulus is receiving light. Growth is the response given. Right? Growth is the response given. Growth of the apex is the response given. When light is received, apex is growing. Okay. So in a plant, my dear children, growth of a certain part is going to occur because of a certain environmental change or else because of a stimulus. So that's the first type of a movement which you can observe within the plants. Then the next one, change of the location due to temperature change. Temperature means you can say it as a pressure change. Okay, temperature change, a pressure change. So due to change in the pressure, the location is also getting changed somewhat. Initial location is getting changed. Especially this thing can be observed within the leaves like the mimosa plants. Okay, so if the initial position is like this, now when I'm going to touch it, the pressure is getting changed, or simply we can say that the pressure is getting changed, but the actual correct term is the temperature. So when I'm going to touch this thing, the temperature is going to change. So like this way, the location is also getting changed, or the position of the two leaves are getting changed. Okay. So here it is given, the change of location due to a temperature change, right, can also trigger a certain movement. So movements can occur due to two possible ways in a plant. One thing is a growth movement that happens mainly because of the growth substances. Growth movement. According to a certain stimulus, right? Growth of a part of a plant can occur. According to a certain stimulus, growth of a plant part can occur. So it is considered as a movement of a plant. Then the second one is due to a temperature change. The location, the initial location of a certain part of a plant is going to change. Right? Location of the certain part of a plant is going to change. So this way also plants show movements. So my dear children, once again check. Growth of a part in a plant as a response to a stimulus or change of the location due to a temperature change is known as a movements of a plant. So it is known as movements that can be contained or that contained within a plant. Okay, those are the movements. So movements can happen because of two possible ways. One thing is because of a temperature change. According to the temperature change, the position of the leaves or whatever the organ is going to change. Then the second one would be according to a certain stimulus within the environment, a certain part is going to grow because of the action of growth substances mainly. So these are the two main types of movements that can be identified within the plant. The two main types of movements, my dear children. Okay, right then. So according to that, there are two types of movements in plants. So there are two types of movements in plants, my dear children. So the first and foremost movement type is trophic movements. Okay, trophic movements. Then the second type is nestic movement. So trophic movements and the nestic movements. These are the two types of movements that we can observe within a plant. So these two types actually happens because of the above given reasons. Because of a growth of a plant, or else because a position change, or else a location change due to a temperature change. Okay. So these two main movements occur because of those two changes. Now let's head on to see what are these nestic movements and what are these trophic movements, my dear children. Right. So you are given with a topic, the trophic movements. The fresh new topic that we are going to discuss is the trophic movements. So now we are going to study about the trophic movements, my dear children. So here it is given, trophic movements are growth or movement that occurs due to a direct influence between the direction of stimulus and the direction of response. What do you mean by that? There is a direct relationship or direct influence between direction of stimulus and the direction of the response. Okay? There is a clear, right? There is a clear relationship or there is a clear influence between the direction of the response and, my dear children, between the direction of the stimulus. Okay? There is a direct relationship between the direction of the stimulus and the direction of the response. For an example, let's take an example like this, not related to the plant, but a day-to-day example, a simple example. Now let's imagine that we'll be walking around a path. Okay, let's imagine that we are running around a ground. Now we are running around a ground. So when you are completing one round, my dear children, suddenly a snake going to come. Okay. Now you are about to complete one cycle. Suddenly a snake is going to come. What will happen? Definitely you will stop. Definitely you will stop your motion or you will stop the running process. And sometimes you will run away from the snake. Definitely you will run away from the snake. So let's check the stimulus and let's check the response. Stimulus is the coming of the snake or movement of the snake towards you. That's the stimulus. So towards, when that snake is coming towards you, you run away from it. You run away from it. So when the snake is coming towards you, my dear children, you run away from it. Not towards. Can you see that? There's a certain relationship. According to the direction of the snake, you are going to decide to which direction that you are going to run. Definitely your running direction would be away from the snake, not towards. So there is a direct influence between the running direction, which is the response given, and the stimulus, which the direction of the snake. So if there is a clear influence between these two, between the direction of the stimulus and between the direction of the response. So if there is a clear relationship between these two, then, my dear children, this type of a movement can be considered as a trophic movement. A trophic movement. Now let's head on to the plants for a trophic movement, my dear children. The apex of the plant is always growing towards the light. So receiving light is the stimulus. Growing towards the light is the response. When change in the direction of the light, the response given is also going to change. The direction of the response is also going to change. If the light is coming from that direction, then the apex will grow towards that direction. If the light is coming from now this direction, then the apex is going to grow that direction. So according to the direction, my dear children, the direction of the response is also going to change within the trophic movements. So within the trophic movements, we can observe that particular thing. What is that? According to the direction of the particular stimulus, the direction of the response is going to change. It can be towards or it can be away. Right? So that growing apex towards the light is a towards one, right? I can give you an away one as well, like this. The roots of the plant always growing towards the ground and away from the light. Okay? Away from the light and towards the ground. Right? Even for some animals, my dear children, this is valid. Some animals. So you may have observed that there are several insects. Right? There are several insects. Now during the nighttime period, when a certain person is going to turn on the light, okay, insects will come and gather around the light source. So no matter in which place when I am going to turn on the light, for that particular place the insects are going to come. So there is a direct relationship between the response given by the insect and the stimulus. Stimulus is the giving light. So according to the direction of light which is given, the direction of the response is also going to change. To the direction of light, right? To the direction of light, insects are going to move. So my dear children, the response is directly getting affected. Response is directly getting affected, right? Directly getting affected because of the direction of the stimulus. So this is the first type of movement that we can observe within the plants. Okay, within the plants. So growing of apex towards the light is an example for trophic movement. Growing of roots towards the ground is also an example for trophic movements. Growing of roots away from the light, right? Or else growing of apex away from the ground, right? That is also we can take as a trophic movement. So these movements can be away or towards the stimulus, right? So here once again, trophic movements are growth or movements that occur due to a direct influence between the direction of stimulus and the direction of response. So it can be a growth or else a movement. So both of these things can be taken. It can be a growth of a certain part or else a movement of a certain part. Both the things are correct. Then the next point given. Trophic movements occur due to the effect of growth substances. So like I said in the earlier case, my dear children, mainly these trophic movements are going to occur because of what? Because of the effect of growth substances. Okay. Because of the effect of growth substances, these trophic movements are going to occur. Okay. Then response may be towards or away from the stimulus. Like I said, my dear children, the stimulus, according to the direction of stimulus, the response can be to the direction of the stimulus or else away from the stimulus. It can be to both directions. Okay. Not to both directions in the same plant, but when you take different instances, sometimes towards the stimulus, the response can be observed. Sometimes the stimulus is coming from a certain direction, but however the response is given to the opposite direction. So according to that, we can observe two types of trophic movements. Number one, positive tropism or positive trophic movement. Positive means always these kinds of movements or growth is going to occur towards the stimulus. Positive means to the direction of the stimulus, right? Positive means, my dear children, to the direction of the stimulus, the motion of, right? The motion of or the movement of a part is going to occur, right? Or the growth of a certain part of a plant is going to occur to the same direction which the, right, to the same direction which the stimulus is coming. So the earlier example which I have took, which one? The growth of the apex towards the light. So that example belongs to positive trophism. So positive trophism means the growth of a certain part of a plant or else movement of a certain part of a plant towards the stimulus. Then the second one, negative tropism. So negative tropism occurs away from the stimulus. Negative tropism occurs away from the stimulus. Okay. So like I said, not related to the plants, this thing, okay. Like I said, the earlier case, when you are running around the ground, snake is going to come, stimulus, you are going to run away. Not towards, but away. The respond. So according to the direction of the snake, the response given is going to change. If the snake is coming now from the back, then you are running forward, away from the snake. Okay. So if the snake is going to come front, then you are running backwards or away from the snake. In the same way, if a certain growth of a plant or if a certain movement of a plant is going to occur away from the direction of the stimulus, then that particular movement is referred as a negative trophism. Negative trophism. So if this thing is going to happen towards the stimulus, then it is referred as the positive trophism. If it is going to occur away from the direction of the stimulus, then it is referred as a negative trophism. Negative trophism or negative trophic movement. The previous one is positive trophic movement. Okay. Negative trophic movement and positive trophic movements. So these are the two types of trophic movements that we can observe. The two types of trophic movements. Right, my dear children. So those are the types of trophic movements that we can observe. Now let's head on to see what are the other contents contained within the lesson. So trophic movements, here a point is given. Some trophic movements are described below. So these things or these examples are for several trophic movements, my dear children. So number one, positive geotropism. Positive geotropism. So geo means the ground. So I think you know about the geography. Geologist. Geography means the study about the earth, study about the ground. Geography. So geo means ground. Geotrophism means trophic movements related to the ground or towards or away from the ground. Positive geotropism means positive geotropism. Now here towards the ground, positive means towards, no? So towards the ground, trophic movements are going to occur. Towards the ground, the growth of a certain substance is going to occur. Right? So that is what do you mean by geotrophic movement or geotropism. So here it is given roots growing towards the ground. We know that roots are the ones which are growing towards the ground. Okay? In a plant, you know that roots are growing towards the ground. So roots which are growing towards the ground can be taken as a positive geotropism or positive geotrophic movement. Positive geotrophic movement. Positive geotrophic movement, my dear children. So roots which are growing towards the ground is a positive geotrophic movement. Always you know that roots are always looking to find out the ground. Always the roots are growing towards the soil. So where the soil is present, the roots are going to go or to turn to that direction, to that particular direction. So presence of soil, that's the stimulus. Growing roots towards it, that's the response given. So this is a positive geotrophic movement or positive geotropism. Next one, negative geotropism. Negative geotropism. Now negative means to the opposite direction. Negative means, my dear children, to the opposite direction. Now, which part of the plant is going to grow to the opposite direction of the ground? We know that, and it is very obvious to us. Stem of the plant, apex of the plant. Stem of the plant or else the apex of the plant always growing away from the soil, away from the soil. So here it is given, stem of the plant growing away from the ground. Stem of the plant growing away from the ground. So when you take the stem of the plant is always growing away from the ground, towards the direction of the light, right? Okay. So it's not going to grow towards the dark, it's going to grow towards the light. You know that inside the ground, we can't find any light. Okay. So therefore, stem of the plant is always growing away from the ground, away from the ground. Away from the ground, stem of the plant is going to grow. So therefore, this is a negative geotropism, negative geotrophic movement, negative geotrophic movement. Not towards the ground, but away from the ground. Okay, negative geotropism or negative geotrophic movement. Then the next one, positive phototrophism. This photo thing, photo means photo. This photo thing, my dear children, we studied about the meaning of photo in the last lesson also. Right? Actually, photo means light. Well, I think you know about the photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is going to occur mainly because of sunlight. The photograph, right? Photograph. You take photographs by using the light energy. When you take a camera, when you take a photograph, you take light energy. So the light energy is very important to take a photograph. So we graph by using photo. Photo means light. Graph means a picture. So we are taking a picture using light. That's what do you mean by the photograph, right? So photo means light. Remember it. Photo means light. Here it is given phototropism. That means this particular motion or movement is going to occur because of the influence of light. That is what do you mean by the phototrophism or the phototrophic movements. So the next thing which is given is positive phototrophism. Positive phototrophism. Positive phototrophism or positive phototrophic movement means, my dear children, positive means towards. Phototrophism means towards the direction of light. So what is the thing which is growing towards the direction of light in a plant? It's pretty much obvious to us that apex of the plant or the stem of the plant is always growing towards the light. So the example which is given here, stem growing towards the light. See, by looking at the word, my dear children, just by looking at the word, you can directly get the idea of the movements, right? So positive phototrophism means here, positive phototrophism means photo means light. So to the direction of the light, a certain thing is going to grow. Okay, to the direction of the light, a certain thing is going to grow. So this is called as the positive trophism. So example for positive trophism means positive phototrophism, my dear children. Example is stem growing towards the light. Stem growing towards the light. Then the next one, positive hydrotropism. Positive hydrotropism. Hydro means water. Okay. Hydro means water. Hydrotropism means to the direction of the water. To the direction of the water, growth is going to occur, or else the movement is going to occur. Towards the water, movement or the growth is going to occur. So what are the components that seek water within a plant? It's the root. Root of the plant is the one which seek water. You know that root hairs are the ones which absorb water to the plant. So root of the plant is going to seek water. Root of the plant is always growing towards the water. So this is referred as, this movement of roots growing towards a water source is referred as, my dear children, positive hydrotrophic movement or positive hydrotrophism. Here hydro means water. Hydro means water. So it is given positive hydrotropism, roots moving towards the water source. Towards a water source, the roots are going to move or roots are going to grow. Then the next one, positive chemotrophism. So here chemo means, it's very simple, chemo means chemical substances. Chemical substances. To the direction of several chemical substances, the growth is going to occur or the movement is going to happen. Right? So under that, my dear children, example given, growth of the pollen along the tube towards the ovule. Right? Growth of the pollen along the tube towards the ovule. Pollen, the male sex cells or the male gametes contained within a flower. Ovule, ovules are the ones, right? Those are the female reproductive cells. Female reproductive cells or female sex cells contained within a flower. So always, my dear children, the growth of pollen, male sex cells in a plant, grow along the tube towards the ovules, which are the female reproductive system or female reproductive structures. Okay. Right. Then the next one, positive thigmotrophism. Positive thigmotrophism or positive thigmotrophic movement. Thigmotrophism or thigmotrophic movement. Clinging of the coiling of tendrils in passion fruit with the support. So you know that when you take passion fruit plant, there are several coils, right? Those things are called as tendrils. So these tendrils are coiling to cling on a support, right? To cling on a support. So my dear children, so clinging of the coiling of tendrils in passion fruit with the support, right? So to a support, the plant, the passion fruit plant is going to coil, right? Coil their tendrils. So this coiling is going to occur, right, towards a, or this coiling processes or these coils are going to occur towards a support, right? So this is referred as a thigmotrophic movement or thigmotrophism. Thigmotrophism. So clinging of the coiling of the tendrils in passion fruit with the support is a thigmotrophic movement, positive thigmotrophic movement, because always it is going to occur towards the support, okay. So these are the trophic movements that we can observe, my dear children. So there can be positive trophic movements and as well as what? Negative trophic movements, okay. There can be positive movements, positive trophic movements, and as well as negative trophic movements. Positive trophic movements always occur towards the direction of the stimulus. Negative trophic movements always occur away from the stimulus, right? Away from the direction of the stimulus. So these are the positive and negative trophic movements. Positive and negative trophic movements, my dear children. Right then. So studying about the trophic movements. Okay. Now we are going to study about the trophic movements. So here, my dear children, we are going to do a special kind of an activity. Okay. Within this activity, we are going to plant several pea plants. Okay. You can use green gram plants if you want, right? If you want, you can use several green gram plants can also be used. However, we'll be using several pea plants. Okay. So you'll be needing these two things. First thing is you'll be needing two pots, right? You'll be needing two pots. So two flower pots. Two flower pots. Then we'll be needing several pea seeds. Okay. It can be any green gram, cowpea, whatever. Okay. Right. Several pea seeds. So these are the materials you need in order to observe the movements regarding or the trophic movements of a plant. The two materials that you need. Now let's head on to observe the method. So it's really simple, my dear children. The method of doing the activity. It's very simple. Let's see what is the method. Plant 5 soaked seed in each pot. After seed germination, keep one healthy plant in each pot and uproot all the other plants. What you have to do here is, you are going to plant these pea plants within two different pots. Okay. So you have to take at least 5 because you know that sometimes these plants may grow and sometimes they may not. So therefore we have to use at least like 5 pea seeds. Okay. For a one particular pot. Right. So what you have to do, you have to place these pea seeds within a pot separately at like 5 each, then keep it for some time so that they will germinate and the plant and the growth of the plant will start. Okay. Then after several days, you have to select 2 healthy plants and you have to remove all the other plants. Okay. You have to remove all the other plants. Right. Then what do you have to do? Let's see. Keep one pot vertical and the other toppled down as shown in the figure. So what you have to do, like in the figure, you have to keep one plant erect like this and you have to topple the other one down. Okay. You have to topple the other one down. Right. Should be like this. The two plants. Observe the growth of pattern of root and shoot after 1 week. So what do you have to do then? You have to observe the growth of the shoot and the root after about 1 week. Okay. After about 1 week, you have to observe the growth of the pattern of the root and also the growth of the pattern of the shoot. Right. So this is the way of doing the experiment, my dear children. Right. This is the way of doing the experiment then. Remember, you have to, first of all, you have to take several pea plants. Okay. It can be any cowpea or green gram or any. Right. Then what you have to do, you have to plant these things separately within 2 pots. Then after that, what you have to do, You have to take these two out. Okay, you have to take these two out. Actually, you have to select, first of all, select two healthy plants, and you have to keep it for a while, I mean like for a week. Then you have to take these two out, and you have to observe the direction of the growth of the root. Okay, of the root. I forgot to tell you that before you are going to check this thing, you have to topple down one. Okay, you have to topple down one pot like this. Then you have to observe after 1 week. So you have to keep these two plants in a good place where they receive plenty of light. Okay, so it's important to keep the plant in the same way like this. Don't turn it like vertical in the first figure. You have to keep it in the same way for about 1 week. Then you have to observe the direction of the root and direction of the shoot which is growing. Okay, so this is how to do the activity, my dear children. Right, so now let's head on to the lab. I think doing this experiment is very convenient for you guys as well. You can do this thing even in your home. It's really simple activity, and check whether the direction of the growth of the shoot. What will happen to the direction of the growth? You can check. So now let's head on to the laboratory, my dear children. I have prepared a system in the same way like this. Let's observe what has happened to those shoots and roots separately, right? So now after I'm going to go to the laboratory, I'm going to uproot those things, and I'm going to observe the changes that has happened within the two plants. So now let's head on to the lab and we'll observe the changes. So my dear children, these are the two setups which I have kept very securely for several weeks. So here, this potted plant, I have I have turned it down, but I have kept this system in the vertical position like in the same way. So I kept these two systems for about 1 or 2 weeks. However, my dear children, you know that there is a possibility that this will rotate here and there. So very securely I have placed this thing over here, right? Not over here. I have prepared this system on a different kind of a place, but as when I'm going to demonstrate this thing, I took this thing for you to show you guys. Now within this system you can see that the growth of the plant is not going to occur. So here, as you can see in this one, this is the potted plant which I have turned. However, the growth of the plant is not going on a horizontal axis. Starting position of the apex is on a horizontal axis. However, gradually it is now turning towards the top part. I mean, the area which is going to receive plenty of light. Light means here solar energy. However, this system is growing straight up. It's because it's receiving sunlight from the top part of for the top part, it receives plenty of sunlight. However, my dear children, with the system which I have turned down will not receive plenty of sunlight. So therefore, the apex of the plant is turning towards the direction which it is going to receive sunlight. So it's very clear to us that plant apex is always growing towards the sunlight. Even though when I'm going to turn this thing down, apex of the plant always going towards the sunlight. So let's head on to the classroom once again and we'll write down our observations and conclusions from this setup. Right, my dear children. So we did the activity, right? And you could clearly observe that roots of the plant always going to grow towards the soil or towards the ground. Okay, so roots of the both plants growing towards the ground, that was towards the soil, that was our first and foremost observation. So we can write the observation number 1. Roots of both plants have grown roots of both plants have grown towards soil, right? Towards soil. Roots of both plants have grown towards soil. Then the second observation. The second observation also quite obvious. You can see that the second plant which I have toppled, right? The shoot of that plant is growing towards the light. How can I say that? Because it's been bent towards the light. Towards the direction of the light, it's been bent. So, my dear children, when I was toppling it down, I was directing the shoot of the plant to a certain direction, to another different direction, right? But however, after about 1 or 2 weeks, right, the direction of the shoot is going to grow, or it's going to resume to the direction of the light, right? For that growth of the shoot is going to resume towards the direction of the light, right? Even though I'm going to topple it down, right, there's no change in it. It's going to happen in the same way. So, my dear children, the second observation is quite simple. Shoot of the two plants growing towards the light. Okay. Shoots of the two plants have grown towards the light. We'll say that towards the sunlight. Okay, that's better. So, root of both plants have grown towards soil. Shoots of the two plants have grown towards the sunlight. So, these are the two observations that we took from the experiment. Okay. Then the conclusion. What is the conclusion? So, if it is going to occur, right, if a movement is going to occur towards the certain stimulus or towards the certain stimuli, then it is a positive trophism. So, here, my dear children, shoots growing towards the light is a positive phototrophic movement. Positive phototrophic movement. So, we can write number 1, shoots growing towards light is a positive. Shoots growing towards light is a positive phototrophic movement. So, shoots growing towards light is a positive phototrophic movement. Then, my dear children, number 2, roots growing towards soil. Roots growing towards soil is a positive geotrophic movement. Right? So, shoots growing towards light is a positive phototrophic movement. Roots growing towards soil, is a positive geotrophic movement. Other than that, my dear children, we can get two other conclusions as well. So I'm going to take this thing somewhat up to write down those two. We know that when the roots are growing towards the light, when the shoots are growing towards the light, it is growing away from the soil. Okay, it is growing away from the soil. So that means growth of a shoot can be taken as a negative geotrophic movement, right? Yes, we can take it as a negative geotrophic movement, right? Because the stem is always growing towards the light or away from the soil. Okay, away from the soil. So we can say number 3, shoots growing away from the soil is a negative. Shoots growing away from soil is a negative geotrophic movement. Then final and the fourth one, the opposite case of root growing. You know that the root is always growing towards the ground, to a darker area or to a darker place, away from the light. So it can be taken as a negative phototrophic movement. Okay, negative phototrophic movement. So here, roots growing away from light roots growing away from light is a negative phototrophic movement. Right. So these are the 4 conclusions that we can take from the activity. So let's observe the observation once again. So our 2 observations are quite simple, my dear children. Roots of the both plants have grown towards the soil. We observed that the root of the both plants has grown towards the soil. It's obvious. Shoots of the 2 plants have grown towards the sunlight, and we have observed that shoots of the 2 plants have grown towards the sunlight. Okay, those are the 2 observations that we took. Then, based on those 2 observations, we can get 4 different conclusions. So these are those 4 different conclusions. Number 1, shoots growing towards light is a positive phototrophic movement. So if a certain thing is growing towards, then it is a positive one. So here, shoots growing towards the light is a positive phototrophic movement. Positive phototrophic movement. Then, roots growing towards soil is a positive geotrophic movement. Roots which are growing towards soil, right? Roots which are growing towards soil is a positive geotrophic movement. To the ground, it's going to occur. So it is a positive geotrophic movement. Positive geotrophic. Then number 3, shoots growing away from soil. Shoots growing away from the soil. We know that the shoots are growing away from the soil, right? It's always growing towards the light, away from the soil. That means shoots growing away from the soil is a negative geotrophic movement. So it can be taken as a negative geotrophic movement as it is growing away from the soil. Not towards the soil but away from the soil. Next one, roots growing away from light is a negative phototrophic movement. So we also know that always the roots are growing towards the soil, away from the light, away from the sunlight. So therefore, growth of roots can be taken as negative phototrophic movements. So my dear children, we have studied about the trophic movements in detail within this activity. Okay. Right then. So with that part, I'm going to finish up this chapter, my dear children. Within our next chapter, we'll discuss about the second main type of movements that occur within the plants. So these second types of movements are called as nastic movements. Nastic movements. So we'll study about the nastic movements within our next chapter, my dear children.
To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.